Jack Sawyer has a chance to keep climbing NFL draft boards, and his combine performance could be the key.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Thursday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast. Part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. And during today's show, we'll dive into the high praise Larry Johnson recently received, as well as the impact of Buckeye game film during Combine Week. But first, Jack Sawyer did one thing every single game this past season, and that was move up draft boards. From the first game of the year to the national championship, Jack Sawyer did what was needed for him to be a big piece of the Buckeyes defense, as well as helping himself make a whole lot more money in the future. And Jack Sawyer being a better pass rusher later in the season, being great in stopping the run throughout his entire Buckeye career, when he put it all together and we got the elite play from Jack Sawyer week after week after week, what you're going to see moving forward is Jack Sawyer continuing to rise up draft boards, and that's going to happen this week during the Combine, as Jack Sawyer is one of the two guys so far that is definitely going to do on-field drills at the Combine. Him and Ty Hamilton are going to be out there working with the D linemen today, and I can't wait to watch them perform, but I also can't wait to see how Jack Sawyer not only knocks it out of the park on the field during the on-field drills, but also how he knocks it out of the park in the interviews. That's one thing we don't see, but I guarantee you when it comes to those interviews, you talked about it a day ago with Will Howard, Jack Sawyer is going to knock every interview out of the park. He understands what it means to be a professional, to be a leader, and to bring your best to every single day. That's what these teams want. When we talked about it recently about how they're going to ask you some abnormal questions to some things to see how you respond to adversity or how you respond when you're backed up against the wall or when someone throws a curveball at you. Those things are going to happen in these meeting rooms. But what also is going to happen is they're going to try to get confirmation about why did you make this move on this play? Why did it take this long for things to click when really was it year 3 for Jack Sawyer? If everything clicks for you in year number 3 or is that really truly the worst thing in the world? Absolutely not. Some guys, it never clicks. Some guys, they wait till the 4th year, then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is the guy we've been waiting to see. When it clicked for Jack Sawyer, everybody got to see not only his ability to stop the run, his ability to be a little bit versatile, come out of a 3-point stance and come out of a 2-point stance, be able to drop in coverage just a little bit. Don't do it too often. That's not his strong suit, but just a little bit, be able to drop back into coverage. But really, it was his pass rushing ability is one thing I think any NFL team is going to be able to say, what we saw for him in college, we can work with that and make it a whole lot better. One of the things we saw from Jack Sawyer and Tuimalo is one of those guys that's not made it clear if he's going to work out on the field or not at the Combine, was Jack Sawyer in the playoff, his pass rush path got better. We talked about it all season, and even going into last season, about how it was somewhat annoying to watch Tuimalo and Sawyer and sometimes Kenyatta Jackson Jr. and Caden Curry run upfield and almost run past the quarterback like you're a speed rusher who has a bad path, where I don't really view Jack Sawyer or Tuimalo as speed rushers, but in the moment, they're trying to do the speed rush thing, run up, and then quarterback goes right under you, and hopefully one of your teammates is there to take the quarterback down. Well, unfortunately, there were a lot of times when Tuimalo or Sawyer ran past the quarterback, there was nobody right there to fill that hole, to fill that gap, and that left a wide open running lane for the quarterback. Now, when Jack Sawyer's pass rush path got a whole lot better, instead of running upfield, they just, both of them together, just closed the pocket and squeezed that thing from both sides of the defensive line. It worked to perfection. And that's what NFL teams want. They want that style of pass rush path, not the one where you're running upfield and going past the quarterback. No, the one where you're working in tandem with the opposite defensive end to squeeze the pocket and to squeeze it so much that there's nowhere for the quarterback to go but to run right into you and to go to the ground. Jack Sawyer's numbers, that's one thing that may be discussed a little bit when he's at the Combine. 59 tackles this past year was a season high for him during a single Buckeye season. 9 TFLs, 9 sacks, that was a season high. 1 interception, which was one thing we will never forget. 7 PBUs, 3 fumble recoveries, 3 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble returned for a touchdown. Jack Sawyer is going to be one of those guys we're going to be talking about for a very long time. Call him a Buckeye legend already, but they're going to tap in and say, why were there so many more pass breakups this year? What clicked? Why were there 3 fumble recoveries this year? What clicked? Why were there 3 forced fumbles? Why did you have 59 tackles this year, 11 more than the year before? They're going to tap into all of the numbers, all of the data, doing their own history, doing their own homework, doing their own homework to dive into the history of Jack Sawyer to see what makes him who he is. Why did Ryan Day love this kid so much? Why was he one of the first Buckeye players to commit to Ryan Day when Ryan Day got promoted to be the Buckeyes head coach? Why did the players love him? They're going to ask all of these kinds of questions. And while the on-field stuff is one thing that you and I will love watching, the NFL teams, they soak up everything from those meetings. You can quickly figure out if a guy's going to click with your coach that position or not. Going to click with the head coach or the D coordinator. Most of the time, it doesn't take that long for these coaches to realize if a guy has it or not. Jack Sawyer has it. I was always a person that believed that JT Tuimalo was going to get drafted higher than Jack Sawyer. I don't think that's going to happen. Part of me also wonders if there was part of Tuimalo's game that wasn't tapped into, that he was maybe kept inside of a box and they weren't allowing him to be as versatile as he might be. I don't know. We know what we saw in the game film, but I always thought that he would be a little more versatile guy, be a better pass rusher. But the games that we saw him play, he wasn't as efficient or even consistent as people thought he should be. Jack Sawyer is that guy. Jack Sawyer was the efficient player, more efficient in every area when he was on the field. He was more consistent. He was a better pass rusher. I mean, he checked so many boxes. I think about all the guys that are going to be working out today between him, or at least possibly working out. Him and Ty Hamilton are the 2 confirmed. Tuimalo and Tyleik Williams are unclear on what their plans are. And Cody Simon's planning on doing everything at his pro day. And I don't blame him. With the Buckeye season ending about a month ago, it's not a surprise that a lot of these guys didn't put in all the effort to get ready for the speed work and the speed drills and all the measurables that are going to be taking place, all those drills at the combine. It's no surprise that some of these guys may have gone out to Arizona or to Florida or to Texas or California to prepare for the combine, and all of a sudden said, man, my body ain't really rested from that long season. They played 16 games, but there was a lot of time in between, just say the game against Michigan to the game against Tennessee. What about 20, 21 days in between those 2 games? That's a long time to be off. Then all of a sudden you got about 10 days off again, then about 10 days off again, about 10 days off again. What are you finding? You're not just playing 16 games. You're playing 16 games over a longer period of time than most teams in America between the NFL and high school play 16 games. Their body is banged up. Their body is battered. It's bruised, and they want to rest a little bit, and I get it. Jack Sawyer is not going to do all of the measurable stuff, the 40, the vertical, all that stuff. Is going to say this stuff for the pro day, which I completely understand. And I also can't wait to see what he does while at the combine, which is going to make his pro day even more enjoyable, because if we see Jack Sawyer do the drills and be a madman in them, and he does them fast and he does them efficient and he's great at those like we think he will be, man, we're going to get another chance for him to do that at the pro day. Sign me up for that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. You can also sign me up for the Buckeyes game film, always meaning more than what happens at the combine. I'll tell you why next. This episode is brought to you by Roy. Attention Ohio State fans, the future of college sports is here and it's transparent. Before the Roy app, NIL negotiations often happened under the table, and fans didn't have a clear way to directly support the athletes they love. Now, with Roy, you get to be a part of the charge and support Ohio State athletes in the most transparent way possible. Roy, the NIL app, allows you to choose a player you want to support, decide how much to contribute, receive exclusive content from the athletes you back. The best part, If your player transfers, you get your money back. It's a risk-free way to show your support. The Roy app is giving fans control, no more uncertainty. Now you can provide transparent, impactful support and help shape the team and the future of college sports with your contributions. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Buckeye athletes the way they deserve with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join in now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. Thank you all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. I love watching Ohio State football. It's a big reason why I'm an Ohio State fan. I love watching this team play. And when we watch guys play 2 or 3 or 4 years, maybe even 5 years, there's a large sample size, a lot of data to look at to describe what a player is. His height, his weight, that's immeasurable. Sometimes those intangibles aren't things you can measure, but they show up when you watch the film. And this week during the Underwear Olympics, as we often call it, the NFL Combine, there are going to be a lot of things people are going to do to try to figure out what a player is, or if he truly is what the film says he is. When somebody looks at a drill and says, oh, how did you go over that bag? Or how was your back pedal? Or did you flip your hips right away? Or are you beefier than we may have thought? Oh, you're faster. You're running a 4.35, not a 4.52 like I would have expected based off the film. There are a lot of things that people are going to look at with the Combine and say the things that we see this week inside Lucas Oil Stadium, that's going to tell me what kind of player you are. And based off that performance, that's how we're going to move you up or down our draft boards. That's hashtag poor analysis. You should never look at a workout in shorts and a t-shirt, maybe even underwear, and say that's going to tell me what a player is like. Don't do it. The film means a whole lot more than what's happening in Lucas Oil Stadium as far as the on-field drills. And you know what? The tape don't lie. It never lies. Why is there a reason? The one main reason why I think Jack Sawyer is going to get drafted before Tuimalo is the game film. We've watched these two guys play over and over and over again. And who was the better player? Most of the time, it was Jack Sawyer. Think about this. Will Howard. Will Howard this past year at Ohio State had a career year. Not just because of the numbers, but because we saw him play at Kansas State. We saw him play at Ohio State. And the Ohio State version of Will Howard was the best version of Will Howard that was ever in college football. Trevion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. Their numbers weren't the best in a single season they've ever had. But what did you find? They complemented each other very well. They are two 1,000-yard rushers at Ohio State as running backs. I think it's the first time since the 70s that's happened. I know it happened in 2013 between Carlos Hyde and Braxton Miller. Those two guys combined for 1,000 rushing yards. But for two running backs, you had to go back a long, long time to see that happen. And it did, but it happened once again. They complement each other very, very well. Trevion Henderson's game film in 2024 is the best film he's ever had as an Ohio State player. As someone that was very critical of the young man when he first got to Columbus, I've been having to change the words that normally come out of my mouth. I'm talking about Henderson because he's great in pass protection. His vision has gotten a whole lot better. He has done a whole lot. He's been doing a better job of running north and south, not east and west. And Carlos Lockwood even recently mentioned in an interview that one of Henderson's downfalls was he liked to go east and west and bounce around a little bit and dance in the backfield. You can't do that. That's not what NFL teams want. And if that's what they want, they won't be successful. But Trevion Henderson's one of those guys. If he decides to work out this weekend, great. If he doesn't, cool. Why? Because you got game film on this young man. Game film on Ibuka, game film on Jordan Hancock or Denzel Burke. The game film always means more than anything that goes on at Lucas Oil Stadium. And it's weird because I grew up loving this event. I knew there'd be guys at Ohio State that would be there. And so when it came to a Braxton Miller, who was at the Combine as a receiver, or when it came to a Cardell Jones or a Troy Smith, or fill in the blank player, an Ezekiel Elliott or Carlos Hyde, whoever it is. When it came to these guys, I'm right there soaking it in, talking about, I remember you. I remember that play when you got Ohio State. I remember that time when somebody blew you up. I remember these guys, and I loved watching the combine. I love watching ball. I mean, talk to my wife. My wife actually we were having a conversation about me watching a scrimmage recently. Why? Because, man, I just love sports. I've loved sports my entire life. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to a high school scrimmage. Why? Because I just love watching ball. And so if you get me a guy that's out there doing a drill in underwear and it's on national TV, I'm probably going to find myself on the couch, which is right in front of me, and trying to sit down, get some popcorn, get me a little drink, and watch the workout. Ohio State's Pro Day. Going to watch that too. I love this stuff. But one thing I always remind myself when watching the combine is somebody could bomb the combine, or somebody could bomb meaning bad, or somebody could go off in the combine. That is never more important than game film. You could talk to any coach out there. And the coaches that are out there, the successful ones, and sometimes the ones that struggle to be consistent on the football field, what they'll tell you is these guys only have to do the combine to let the NFL teams know what they do best. They already know. They've been trying to figure you out for years. Some of these guys have been getting scouted since their first game. Jeremiah Smith has probably had scouts there since his first game in a Buckeye uniform. Why? Because he's that dude. He's that kind of player. And if he decides to not work out at the combine in a couple years, I don't think he's going to be a 4-year Buckeye. What are they going to say? Oh, he didn't work at the combine. He's not a competitor. He does not want to do it on the biggest stage. Excuse me? That would be foolish. And moving forward, I would be really, I won't say sad. It would feel weird if there were no combine in Indianapolis, Indiana. I know we're getting to that point in life to where they may move it to LA, where the new NFL Network studios is, and they're at SoFi Stadium. But I do realize, a lot of people do too in the media, if you go from Indianapolis to LA, the logistics are a whole lot worse. It's a whole lot more expensive. Being able to walk around and from restaurant to restaurant to your hotel, it becomes a whole lot harder because you can't really walk like that. It's not the best thing. And I get a little sentimental. I know that it's where I grew up, and it's a place that I spent a lot of my life. And it's going to feel weird, man. It's going to feel weird. It would also feel very, very weird. I get off that train. It would feel very weird. If the combine was something that an NFL coach said, this means more to me than what Jack Sawyer did against Tennessee, or what Tuimalo did against Penn State a couple years ago, or what Ibuka did throughout his Buckeye career, being the Buckeye receiver to be in the lead of a couple career receiving records. That would be weird. But these guys are smart. They make millions of dollars. They're in these positions for a particular reason. And I don't believe anybody there would be that type of person to say, oh, throw the game film in the trash. We don't need that stuff. We're going to focus in on what's happening right here in front of us to let us know what kind of player we're working with. They're not wearing pads. It's not a true game. It would never be more important than game film. The combine is very important, but it's not more important than those games those boys played wearing the scarlet and gray. While Larry Johnson didn't wear the scarlet and gray as a player, he's worn it as a coach, and a couple of his former players just recently heaped some high praise on the Buckeye D-line coach. This episode is brought to you by Fabric by Gerber Life. Life moves fast, especially when you have a family. One day you're watching your kids take their first steps, and before you know it, they're off to college. That's why securing their future is so important. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it simple to get term life insurance that fits your family's needs. With Fabric, you can apply for term life insurance online right from your couch. You can be covered in under 10 minutes, and in many cases, no health exam is required. As a parent, I want to make sure my family is financially protected no matter what happens. Fabric gives me that peace of mind. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their families. Apply today in just minutes at meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. That's meetfabric.com/lockedoncollege. Policies issued by Western Southern Life, assurance company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes and making this show your first listen of the day. One thing that's unfortunate is I was preparing for this show, and as you'll see, the headphones, if you're watching the YouTube, I've had these headphones for a very, 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 very long time. And as we're having microphone issues here on the show, the one set that I was going to use today that had a microphone attached to the cord gave up the ghost. That's 2 mics gone in 2025. Hopefully the set that we're using today doesn't die on us anytime soon. But one thing I also don't want to get rid of anytime soon is Larry Johnson leading the Buckeyes defensive line. Larry Johnson has been such a fun man to watch and to see the young men that he coached, how they play and how they progress year after year after year. I mean, there's 4 guys that he's coached for 4 or 5 years that are going to get drafted this year. They also got invited to the NFL Combine. Tyleik Williams, Tuimalo, Sawyer, and Ty Hamilton. That goes to show and just heap a lot of praise on Larry Johnson and what he is to these players and what he means to the Buckeyes defense. But some of these guys recently heaped some high praise on Larry Johnson, and he is a guy that deserves all the praise, all of the flowers, to throw them all at him, because Larry Johnson is one of those guys that you're literally blessed to be able to coach by if you're fortunate enough, like Tuimalo, to have Larry Johnson recruit you and to coach you for your entire Buckeye career. Here's what Jalen Tuimalo had to say about Larry Johnson, quote, "You've got to be blessed to have a coach like that. I feel like there's not a lot of coaches like that. For all the recruits out there, that's one guy you have to go to," end quote. I remember a couple of years ago, I was working at FedEx, the FedEx airport, FedEx at the airport in Indianapolis, and a former BYU offensive lineman worked there, and his brother was being recruited by Ohio State, ultimately committed to play at Oklahoma, and we were talking about his brother's recruitment, and I wasn't trying to we were just chit-chat. Didn't talk to him that much. Didn't even know he played at BYU. His older brother played at BYU at the time. But the former old lineman was talking about brother's recruitment and this school and that school, but he said, but it's Ohio State, when he started talking about Ohio State and Larry Johnson. As a former BYU offensive lineman, Ohio State, I don't believe Ohio State played BYU while Larry Johnson's been at Ohio State. So it's not like it's a guy who prepared to go up against Larry Johnson. I'm not sure the Penn State thing. So maybe BYU and Penn State played while LJ was there coaching in Happy Valley. But everybody around the country knows what Larry Johnson is as a coach. One of the most respected position coaches in the country. Has a long laundry list of players that he's coached that have gone off to the NFL. Has a long laundry list of players since he's been at Ohio State that have gone off to the NFL. He's one of those coaches that stayed at Ohio State and stayed on the coaching staff when Ryan Day got promoted, which speaks volumes about him. I'm going to dive into that a little bit later. But Larry Johnson, over and over and over again, not only gets the Joey Bosa, the Nick Bosa, the Chase Young, he gets the Sam Hubbard. He gets the Adolphus Washington. He gets a Ty Hamilton. He gets a Devon Hamilton. He gets a Tuimalo. He gets a Sawyer. He gets so many great Jonathan Cooper, Zach Harrison. Gets so many great guys, just human beings in general, that happen to be physically blessed to play football, and he just squeezes that orange, just squeezes it all up, and all of a sudden, you get a great Buckeye player. And there are also times, and this is something I think about with Tuimalo, when it comes to Jonathan Cooper, I never saw Cooper, when he was at Ohio State, I never saw Cooper have a path to be what he is right now in the NFL. Never saw that. Tuimalo, great Buckeye player. Part of me wonders if there's still a little bit more left in the tank that was never tapped into. Is that a knock against LJ? No. It could just be the defense Ohio State ran didn't utilize that part of that player's skill set, and they were asked to do certain things, and they stayed within the confines of the of the playbook. It's possible. Not saying it's the reality, but it's possible. Think about Zach Harrison. Many people, and I'm one of them, believe that he never put it all together. Now, the 5-star rating kind of skews how you view a player. When you see a guy with the 5-star rating coming into Ohio State, your expectations sometimes are through the roof because that star rating, when you see it, you have a picture about what that guy is going to look like on the football field. Sometimes that's the case. But also, let's just say Larry Johnson is kind of restricted, which I don't really think that's going to happen anymore. But let's just say he was restricted on how players are going to be utilized at Ohio State. And all of a sudden, you realize you got a guy playing defensive end in a 4-3 or a 4-2-5, and he's truly a outside backer in a 3-4 look. Oh, wow. That's not on Larry Johnson or the player. It was just a defense that they're running, didn't tap into that particular skill set. Tuimalo. I think Tuimalo is more of a 5-tech or 7-tech defensive end, probably more 5-tech D end than a traditional defensive end. But what are you going to find in the NFL? He might be better on a 3-down look, on a 3-4, or I don't really run a 3-3-5 in the NFL, but he may be more of a D end and a 3-4 front. Why? That's probably where he's going to be needed the best. That goes into his run stopping ability. But also, the last part to this quote, which I didn't want to gloss over, is very big. Tuimalo made a comment about the recruiting. For all the recruits out there, that's one guy you have to go to. And if I am, you already got a Zion Grady, you got to Edric Houston. Whoever Ohio State's recruiting on the D-line in 2026 or 2027 or 2028 and beyond, one thing you're going to want to do is make sure you're being coached by a guy that gets it, that has a track record of success, and is able to produce elite players at that position. Larry Johnson's the guy. And also, when it comes to Larry Johnson, someone made a comment about him recently. I think it's very true. He is not coaching or recruiting like a guy that's about to call it quits. I don't know if you get Zion Grady or Edric Houston if Larry Johnson's about to call it quits. And so all of the recruiting efforts and all the guys that Ohio State's getting, to me, it just speaks to Larry Johnson's ability to get it done a whole lot longer than some people think he's going to. Now, we have on this show talked about Larry Johnson's retirement and how it's something that might be coming up sooner than some people would think. There have been a lot of people that are on the Ohio State beat that have been saying, well, Larry Johnson might retire soon, this and that. The actions we see from Larry Johnson, the view we get sometimes in the locker room, none of that screams to me of a man that's about to call it quits. His recruiting efforts on the recruiting trail, none of that screams to me about a man that's about to call it quits. So if he is great, you could always plan for a guy to retire 2 or 3 years before he calls it quits. That's actually a reality as well. But also, something tells me Larry Johnson might be here longer than some people think, and maybe longer than some people want him to be at Ohio State. If you're someone that wants Larry Johnson up out of town, stop. Just stop. Don't go that far. Don't repeat that. Don't even let your closest friends know you're trying to get Larry Johnson up out of Ohio State. You're going to look foolish. It doesn't make any sense. Because trust me, if you kick him up out of Ohio State, there are going to be numerous teams in the Big Ten, teams in the SEC, and teams all around the country that are trying to bring that man to their school, give him top dollar, and allow him to coach that position room. Larry Johnson's track record of success speaks for itself. The laundry list at Happy Valley, the laundry list of players in Columbus, Ohio, it speaks for itself too. His efforts on the recruiting trail is amazing. Getting high praise from Tuimalo and Sawyer, 2 guys that have been in the program for 4 years. Think about that and the impact it's going to have on Larry Johnson moving forward. That you're going to have 2 guys that are going to be at worst day 2 picks. That's going to help you on the recruiting trail. Yeah, they trying to kick me up out of town, man. They trying to tell me to go here. They trying to tell me to go ahead and go to Cancun for the rest of my life. And I got more coach in me. And these guys are going to the NFL and they're getting their blowhorn out and saying, go play for that man. He will get you right. Go play for LJ. He'll get you to the NFL. He'll help you move up draft boards. If that's the thing that's going to be said over and over and over at the NFL Combine, keep it coming. Because Larry Johnson is the kind of coach I want coaching defensive linemen at Ohio State for a long, long time. Thank y'all for tapping Locked on Buckeyes. right here on a Thursday, making this show your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On College Basketball Podcast with Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. Don't wait for March. Be the most informed college basketball fan now. Find Locked On College Basketball on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. It has been Locked On Buckeyes right here on a Thursday. We'll see you next time.